Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here. I'm here with Taylor Temple, owner of Mind and Body by Temple. She's a holistic and wellness company. She is a superstar. She's going to talk to you about movement. She's going to talk to you about longevity. She's going to share some insights on how to live a better life. How are you today, Taylor?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here, Dr. Rob.
It's my pleasure. We communicated over social media. I saw what you were doing and I just had to get you on. I need you to share with the followers how to stay healthy and your look on longevity. So let's dig right in. How does nutrition affect all aspects of our being and longevity?
So I love this topic and I knew you'd probably love it as well. I think now in society is people are so fixated on the instant gratification. So a lot of people want the quick and convenient foods. So they're putting McDonald's into their body. They're putting bags of chips into their body. And they're not thinking as far as like stomach health, microbiome health, longevity health, the actual effects it have. So if we look at like society, and you're probably very well aware of this, like mental health rates, obesity rates, increase of diseases as well, and it's all correlated to the foods that we're actually putting into our body. So I work with a lot of people where they suffer from brain fog. They suffer from confusion, kind of low energy, high anxiety, even depression rates, right? And like one of my first questions that I talk to most of my clients with is, what does your nutrition look like?
It's a great question because let food be our medicine, let medicine be our food. Hippocrates once said that. Good food is a potentiator for health, information. Bad food is a potentiator for inflammation. And that's the crux of what we're having in America as far as the detrimental effect to overall health. We are too inflamed, and that obviously cascades into the idea of longevity. So I love what you're doing there. So let's dump in a little bit. How does society function, suffer nowadays from bad food? Why is the food compared to when my parents ate and, my generation to your generation? What happened?
Well, let's talk about a little experiment. So I actually did a bit of an experiment where I took 5 different fast food chains. I put the burgers in a container. And just out of pure curiosity, I was like, okay, how does this affect our bodies? So I did like an A&W, we did a Wendy's, we did a Five Guys burgers and fries, and we did a McDonald's. So out of the 4, the first one to go moldy was actually A&W. The second one was the Five Guys burgers and fries.
Wow.
What didn't go moldy was McDonald's. So that truly puts things into perspective. It's like, what percentage of our population right now is eating out of these fast food restaurants? And like from the preservative standpoint, what kind of toll does that take on our body? So I truly believe that kind of shows up in our mental health and in our obesity rates as well.
That's a great, you know what, you should do that for like a before and after or through the time frame on a reel on social media. You'll go viral with that because like you said, McDonald's didn't spoil because it's full of preservatives. We didn't even get to the type of meat, not being grass fed, etc. Is it real meat?
Clearly not.
Wow. Wow. So I'm now your social media consultant. You really need to add that in. That is telling. So what foods would you recommend? I mean, you talked about meats. So what protein sources? Because protein leads to muscle mass. Muscle mass is the longevity organ. I'm a big proponent that we need to take that to the next step. Gabrielle Alliance has said that muscle mass is the longevity organ. I believe it's your muscle to fat ratio, which is critical. So we have enough muscle mass. That's a great starting point. But I could be a 6-foot male. I weigh about 185 pounds. I have X% body fat. However, I could have the same amount of muscle mass, weigh 220, but have a higher body fat composition and not be quite as healthy, especially if I have more visceral fat. So that said, what protein sources are you recommending for your clients and your patients?
Yeah, so I'm all about whole foods. And I think this aligns very much so with how you operate as well. So like chickens, great, but try to find more organic, local-based foods, especially when it comes to the protein sources. So chicken breasts, I always say, just because it has the lower fat. I always recommend fish, fresh fish, if you can. Try to stay away from the frozen products, locally sourced once again. And then beef as well, but try to go for more of the extra lean alternatives just because it does have the lower fat in it. Eggs are great. Protein powders are good when you need to supplement and you just don't have the time to cook those whole foods. And it's just easier on the digestive system when you are going for the whole food alternative.
Outstanding. A lot to unbox there. So beef, we both agree, grass fed, grass finished if we can. Eggs, which are a superfood, egg white and yolk, correct?
Yep, you betcha.
You betcha. Protein powders. Interesting thing. There was a study that just came out on protein powder, and they tested it and they found out that the long acting or slow acting protein powder is much better for protein muscle synthesis than the fast acting. So that was interesting in that casein, I am not a dairy person, but casein is very slow. Whey is really quick. Casein's a better choice. And most plant-based are slow acting. However, pea protein is quick acting. And lastly, fish. We all know wild fish if we can. So I'm a big proponent of an acronym: SMASH, wild salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. So you are really hitting bullseyes on every one of the things that you're talking about. So what would you mix those proteins with to get that muscle mass towards our longevity goal?
Ooh, mix them with. So most of the time, the protein, depending on which one you select, they have a decent amount of fat, but I even put additional fats into the meal as well. So mixing it with either some kind of nuts, some kind of healthy oils as well, and then carbs, leafy greens. So I always recommend, especially with society nowadays and based off my experience, people do not eat enough vegetables. So you need to make sure that you have a sufficient amount of vegetables when you are eating your meals.
Yeah, it's been stated you need 12 to 14 servings of fruits and vegetables. So at least servings 9 to 12 of vegetables. I agree. Vegetables
Mhm.
are great to help with digestive enzymes. They're more alkaline versus acidic. So that create alkalinity creates an environment in the body of health promotion. The acidity, obviously, a lot of detrimental things occur, especially like a cancer. So I want to turn the page on you a little bit. It has been stated that the body's all interconnected. I have a chiropractic doctorate degree, and that's my origins, that the body's all interconnected. However, how is everything in the human anatomy all connected?
I love this one. So we touch base on how the foods we eat kind of determines how our body runs, right? So I think that lots of the time, like our gut is our second brain. So the food we consume determines how our body runs. And now, that being said, when we are eating more quick and convenient foods and we're putting that into our body, the ones with lots of preservatives, higher in the trans fat, what kind of signals is that sending to our brain? So now that's going to determine our mental state, from the brain fog, from the low energy, from the anxiety, the depression. Now, knowing that, how is our body functioning? That's probably going to affect our bowel movements. That's probably going to affect how we move our body, or the lack of movement because we're not motivated, right? So everything truly is connected based off the things we drink, the food we eat, and how we treat our bodies.
So the body's all interconnected, but you're almost saying the epicenter may be the gut.
It truly is.
So let's take a couple of steps with that. Let's look at the gut. The gut communicates with the whole body because it has the largest nervous system in the body, called the enteric nervous system. That's why you refer to it as the second brain. Love it. It also communicates with the central nervous system. So there's a gut to brain axis. So that's just neurologically, but the body anatomically, if you sprain your ankle, it has an adverse effect on your body. So I'm coming in to Taylor Temple's place of worship, if you will. What are you going to do with me? I'm starting from scratch. I got my pad, I filled out my paperwork. I said, here you go. Where are you going to start with me? What are you going to do? So people know. I want to get
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, so you're coming to see me. So one of the first things I'm going to do, you filled out your paperwork. I'm going to ask you step one. How much water are you drinking in a day?
Oh, okay. Half my body weight in ounces.
Okay, right on. So that's pretty good. So like the biggest thing is, like, a lot of people come to me, say if you were exhausted, you got chronic fatigue, you suffer from chronic inflammation, you have, let's say, confusion, you're suffering from a bit of anxiety, and you live a sedentary lifestyle. So let's say that's the client profile. The first thing I'm going to do is ask how much water you're consuming. because we do know our mind is made up of 70% water, our human anatomy is made up of 70% water. So it's going to be a big variable. A lot of people are missing out on that. I'm going to ask you, how much sleep do you usually get on a day-to-day basis? So I'm pretty much analyzing the profile in front of me. I'm going to make sure that, hey, if you're not getting enough sleep, let's put you on a really good routine to make sure we get ahead and you are getting the 7 to 8 hours of sleep. From there, I'm going to talk about movement. How much are you moving your body? And if they're coming from a sedentary lifestyle, chances are that's not happening. So the approach I take with my clients is going to be 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and never 0 to 100. So we're going to start with a simple routine such as moving your body for 20 minutes a day, just getting outside and going for a walk. And then I dive deeper into their lifestyle habits. And then I start to talk about nutrition and I dive deeper into that. So if they're not eating their vegetables, that's going to be the number one priority. And knowing that they do have chronic inflammation, probably leaning towards more antioxidant foods. So very berries focused, probably looking at gluten sensitivities or dairy sensitivities as well. And then from there, looking at supplementation.
So I wrote a lot down, so I'm going to reiterate. So you're talking
Yeah.
about water, a minimum of half your body weight in water per day. Now, is that tap water, bottled water? What do we got? Because people always ask me that.
You want to know what? If they're not drinking anything, let's just start with anything.
I agree. The lowest level just to get them going. Sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, good
Yeah.
quality sleep. Movement, you made some really good points. How much do they move? Do they get their 6,000 plus steps? How well do they move? Are they performing movement well? Are they breaking down? And you said you're a slow grower. You don't want to take me from a movement dysfunction, have me do an overhead squat.
Yeah. So we want to make sure. So I do have a very thorough assessment. So if I do have the opportunity to see a client in person, I'll bring them through a full shoulder function test, hip function test, kind of see where they're at. And then we just build up from there.
Fabulous. So you do functional movement assessments.
You betcha.
Right. I found the most effective one is just them having them stand to sit and sit to stand. I used to do an overhead squat and everybody was failing, or virtually everybody was failing. And I realized, you know what? This is the most common position. We walk, we stand, we sit. If you can't do that correct, why am I testing anything else?
Well, and that's exactly it. Even just like to observe someone in a standing position, you learn so much about their anatomy and like their lifestyle habits.
Yeah, posture is the shadow of movement. There's
It
no
is.
doubt about it. And then the movement will show what the posture has, having a postural fault. I understand that. You talked about lifestyle. That's an interesting thing. And I'm assuming that you're talking about concepts of incorporating healthy changes for lifestyle. Health is wealth kind of deal.
You betcha. And it's not so much eliminating habits that they already have, it's about creating healthier habits. So it's like finding the healthiest alternative to sub out previous habits with.
And then you talked about nutrition, which is great, the fuel of the body. You talked about eat more vegetables, eat quality fruits. Again, get back to that quality protein. And I think there was an overriding theme here, avoid ultra processed foods. You want foods that are whole. So essentially, I guarantee you that you probably don't teach people how to read a food label, because if it has a label, just don't eat it.
Yes and no. So it depends on where they're at on the spectrum. Like if they're eating out 6 times per week, I unfortunately do have to teach them how to read a label. Or if they're eating processed foods or boxed foods throughout the week, I do have to teach them how to read that label, because chances are we're not going to make that drastic shift yet, but we can find that healthiest alternative for them.
Excellent. Antioxidant foods, something that you said that I love. You said you would minimize. I don't think you used the word avoid. I use the word avoid. That's okay. Maybe I'm a little more extreme than you. But you said minimize, and I'm adding / Rob says maybe avoid gluten and dairy. And I know that when you say that, it's heartbreaking. So let me give you a scenario. You say no gluten. People go, does that mean no bread? Does that mean no pasta? And when you say no dairy, they go, oh my goodness, what am I going to do without that cheddar cheese? How do you deal with that immediate protection of the foods that they want to eat that got them into their unhealthy condition?
Truthfully, my response with that is it is 2024. We have so many alternatives now. We're not giving up bread, we're just giving up gluten bread. We're not giving up cheese, we're just giving up dairy cheese because there's so many alternatives on the market. Like they have chickpea pastas, they have corn-based breads, they have you name it, they've got it now.
I agree with you. I mean, and by the way, I have all my Italian friends over who want a pasta, and we have a chickpea pasta, and they're happy with it. You know, ethnically Italian, who are very particular about that pasta, if I can say that. And we melt in some vegan cheese, and they're good to go. So we have our baked ziti. We could add a protein in there. So there are a lot of options out there for
Mhm.
people that they don't feel that they have to lose something. You know, we are humans the only species that drinks another species' milk. I
What
mean,
does
enough
that
said, I
tell you?
guess. Supplements. You hit supplements. What supplements do you recommend?
So it all depends on the individual, but I always say if you're not eating enough vegetables throughout the day, I'm going to recommend a green supplement off the get-go. Is usually one of my first ones. Depending if you are male, female, age group is going to depend which multivitamin I recommend for you as well. Like if you were 50 plus, hit the 50 plus multivitamin. If you were below that, get your female vitamin or your male vitamin. Iron for my female clients are usually non-negotiable. Iron, B12. You want to, if the multivitamin doesn't have a significant amount of vitamin A, C, E, I always recommend those. And then also microbiome support. So I think that's a huge one. Any kind of turmeric curcumin with black pepper. I personally take some ginger root, magnesium, and then creatine, I think, is a huge one for a lot of people, just from like a longevity standpoint as well.
Creatine's really exploding. It's really funny. About 25 years ago, well, I'll say about 35 years ago, and I'm dating myself, we were taking creatine to enhance muscle mass. So the natural guys, we took creatine, and we were told, don't take creatine, don't, because you're going to have tendon issues, you're going to have water weight gain, all malarkey. About 25 years ago, I graduated chiropractic school. I was so excited about creatine. I wrote my thesis on creatine, and the same thing held there. Now, circa to where we are today, creatine is being lauded. So those who want to listen to people say this supplement isn't good, this supplement isn't good, go back to the history of creatine. And creatine is great for both short and long term amnesia, great for memory, great for muscle mass, post COVID. Love your list, many of which is what I take every day. And I also recommend with all my patients. So that said, and I did, you know what? I want to segue back. You did say iron for women, and I think you said probably meant that iron for women, like between 15 and 50 menstruating age women and things like that, because of the loss of blood, they need the iron. That is such an overlooked fact. People don't realize.
And that's the sad reality is I work with a lot of females that are just exhausted around the clock. And you start asking them these questions. It's like, when was the last time you got their blood tested? Right. And that's a huge gap right now in our medical system here in Alberta. Is like doctors aren't doing these regular checkups. So I've got females where I've sent to doctors to get their iron levels checked, and they're so low, they're struggling to function.
Love it. I love it. Great stuff. You know, I found this to be so effective in that you get to ask the practitioners testimonials. So let's start. If we had to sit and we had a latte, you know, of course, it would be a plant-based latte, nice, good cup of organic coffee, no pesticides and everything. And I said to you, give me that moment in practice where you just wanted to stop the clock and say, it's right here. I want to
Ooh.
share this moment with everybody.
Ooh. So I think my favorite moments doing what I do as a holistic wellness coach would be clients coming to me. Like I've had a few clients that have endometriosis or have some kind of underlying disease where the reality is that what triggers them is the food that they put into their body or stress, right? So working with clients when they come in initially and it's robbing them of their life. Like this disease is just controlling them and they're not controlling it. So after working together for a period of time, whether that be 3 to 6 months, where they start to notice the changes, and teaching them how to properly take care of themselves and how to overcome, or I guess feel, the stress flare ups before they take place and how to deal with them. And then after the 6 months, they're not taking the medication as much as they used to. They're now controlling the disease and not letting the disease control their life. I think that, to me, I have a long list of accolades, and that right there, that client testimonial is priceless.
Why do you do what you do?
Pardon me?
Why do you do what you do?
Oh man, I have all these tools and I love making the difference in people's lives around me. So, like, my motto for my business is creating the healthiest and the happiest version of you. And it's just by teaching people how to properly take care of themselves.
That's fabulous. It's interesting, and I try and tell everybody that holistic practitioners, chiropractors, I'll say the medically adjacent type of practitioners, do it because something happened in their life and they were transformed. And they were directed. They were impassioned to do it.
Mhm.
And what was it that changed in your life that made you want to do what you're doing right now?
Ooh, that's a great one. So it's actually very deep rooted for me. I was very young at the age of 8. I kind of watched my mother's life fall apart because she didn't take care of herself. She suffers from abusing medications, from addictions as well. So I kind of had the perfect role model of what not to be. And then from there, as a young adult, my sister and I kind of had to take care of ourselves. So from there, it was engraved into me on just how to properly take care of yourself. And from there, it became a passion of mine as a young adult, started as a young personal trainer, and then just like relentlessly pursued education and got into more competitive standpoints when it comes to competitions, and just kept pursuing it. Because not only did it make a huge difference in my life, it has helped so many other people that I've had the opportunity to work with.
That's fabulous. So let's finish up. Give me your 3 most important things I need to implement on Monday to improve my lifestyle and my longevity.
Ooh. All right. So number one is going to be drink your water.
Okay.
Okay. That's going to be absolutely non-negotiable. I'm going to say move your body for a minimum of 20 minutes per day. Okay. And the next one is going to be eat your vegetables. So that's usually the starting point for most people.
Fabulous. You're right. Real basic stuff. But I guarantee you that if I asked my patients, I'm going to see some patients in a little while, those 3 things, they would be negligent in at least 1, 2, and maybe all of them. That's fabulous. So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can visit my website. It's mindbodybytemple.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, and do not hesitate to reach out, mind.body by temple.
Outstanding. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for taking a few minutes. I know your schedule is always packed. We have to do a part 2.
I would love that.